there is a great opportunity to convert business to sales business. But if someone has a poor experience with you on the rental side, you're not going to convert that.
Everyone, thanks for tuning in today. I am really excited for a different kind of episode. So today we have two guests. They work together as a team. We have Shaun, Kass, and Mike Zecchino with the agency in Naples, Florida. They work the whole South Florida market. But interestingly enough, I met these guys because they manage my rental property in Naples, Florida. And they do a great job. But what I found really interesting is the sheer number of properties that they manage gives them a really unique insight into what's happening in their local market, but also they constantly have people asking them about buying and selling in the same area because people are coming to the house, they like the area, etc. I've heard this theme time and time again from agents around the country, so I wanted to find someone who's an expert in converting short-term rentals into real estate sales, but also would love to get some general advice on short-term rentals. So guys, I think we have a lot to talk about today. And I know, Mike, you just had a baby. Shaun, you always have a lot going on with your fun social media videos. So welcome to the show, and I'm ready to get enlightened by you guys.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
So just to start this out, so we can give our listeners kind of an idea of where we're at. You guys manage over 100 rental units, and you had something like over 1,000 reservations last year. So, aside from hundreds of people calling you to, tell you all the many things that are wrong, even if they're pretty much nothing, that's a lot of people. And you converted that business on the STR side into over 27 sales last year, 10 million plus, and you've already done 14 million this year, and it's only May. So we're gonna see a record year here in a year where most agents are down. So clearly, you guys have stumbled upon a niche. I want to know, how did you guys get started in the STR market?
Yeah, so it's kind of funny how we started it. Really, we filled a void that was there. We were at a real estate brokerage where the broker was going to no longer allow its agents to handle short-term rentals because of all the liability issues. And we saw an opportunity to step in and fill that void and be a good in-house referral source for those agents to send. And we literally knew nothing about short-term rentals when we started. There was a big learning curve, but we saw a big opportunity. We always knew from our experience here in Southwest Florida that a lot of people that come and rent here year after year, they do end up eventually buying a home. And so we saw an arena to compete in that nobody else was competing in.
And I mean, let's not sugarcoat this at all or take away from it. Not only do you make money when someone chooses to list or buy a house with you, you make money throughout the process on the short-term rental side. I find your prices to be very competitive. However, I mean, you're not doing all of that marketing and meeting people for free.
Right. Yeah.
That alone is a thriving business, which is kind of a cool thing to have when your marketing approach to residential is a thriving business that's also profitable. You kind of have like a double-edged win.
Yeah, absolutely.
So how long have you been doing the short-term rental game, and how long did it take you guys to kind of get to a level where it was profitable, it made sense, all that stuff?
We started in 2016. It was kind of slow growth, couple of years while we were figuring it out. And we started out with more in our area, properties that had restrictions 30-day at a time, and they could only rent in peak season. But once we started getting introduced to vacation rental properties that could rent nightly year round, then things picked up a lot.
Okay, so walk me through. So if an agent out there is thinking, okay, I want to get more into this property management game as a means to meet some customers, what type of property should they be looking to manage? And what should they stay away from, more importantly? Sometimes what to stay away from might be even more important.
Yeah, go ahead, Shaun. I'll let you take that one.
So I'll start with the first part of that is what to stay away from. So you want to stay away from properties that are have a lot of restrictions as far as minimum number of nights. If they're in like a gated or a pretty heavily restricted homeowners association community that only allows so many rentals per year, I would definitely stay away from that, especially if you're trying to maximize the rental income. So you want to try to find properties that, like yours in Coconut River, that do not have any HOA actually. They have a voluntary one in your community, but so it keeps the fees lower, and also it's not located in like the city of Naples that has a 30-day minimum. It allows you to basically use and rent out your property however you want. So you want to be able to have as much availability as possible. So that's kind of really how to narrow it down. It's taken us, this many years to really figure out where all those niches are here in our marketplace, and be able to identify properties that in those niches that will work really well. Because of course, a lot of people do know where those niches are, so they are a little bit more competitive. But it's also about the type of product that you're purchasing within that area.
Okay. How do you guys get your leads? Like, I mean, it's one thing, you started by kind of taking an opportunity when your broker said, hey, we're not doing this anymore. So you kind of had like a captive audience of some people that needed some short-term property management help. How have you grown the business after that? Because, 100 plus properties, I think you were over 110 the last time we talked. That doesn't just come from referrals from friends at your office. How have you grown that? What playgrounds are you finding this business in?
Yeah, it's a couple different places. I mean, so the main source is still realtor referrals, because a lot of realtors, especially in our market, don't want to deal with rentals, especially if it's only one or two. It's not worth their time. So we do get a pretty significant amount of realtor referrals that way, and we guarantee we don't take anyone's clients. We're realtors too. We get it. But then just having that presence, the more properties we have, the more our phone rings. The more we get leads off of Airbnb. People are just kind of shopping around their neighborhood to see what's going on, and they see our name pop up a few times, and then they Google us and call us. So we've definitely the last couple of years started getting a lot more organic leads that way.
I love that. So when you get people that call in and they want to list your home, what are the big questions? Because I know a lot of realtors on this call have their own Airbnbs and short-term rentals. What are the big questions that a property owner should ask a management company to make sure that this is going to be a good fit?
I mean, there's a few things. Obviously, the number one question we always get is, what is your charge? Everyone wants to know, because there is not really a standard way out there. It seems like there's a huge range of what people offer and what their fee structure is. And aside from there, just, what's your experience level? I don't think people ask us enough, what does your team look like? Having a larger team that can handle a lot of volume and a lot of things quickly, I think is really important. It's a tough industry. The industry's changed a lot. I always kind of say, back in 2006 when Airbnb started, it was, if you had an extra room in your house, you rent it out. And, the traveler's expectation was, I'm renting either a room at someone's house or I'm renting someone's house for a couple nights. It's cool. Mm-hmm. It's a unique experience. That it's not like that at all anymore. Now, when someone rents an Airbnb, they think I'm renting like a 5-star hotel. Like this is an Airbnb. This is a property somebody bought to do this specifically, and it's going to be set up perfectly for my vacation. And so that is, you need someone who understands what the guest's expectation is.
That's a great point. I mean, I reflect back to like the first time I ever went to San Francisco. I went there for like a real estate conference back in like 2012 maybe. And I stayed in a 1-bedroom apartment, and the girl who owned the apartment was still there. And she was like, all right, here's my bedroom key. Like, you can stay in my room. I'm going to sleep on the couch. And I was like, oh my God, this is absolutely cringy. But she was cool. We had some wine. We had a great time. That's not how I would travel today with my kids. And God forbid I booked an Airbnb today and there was like some fat dude on a couch like eating Cheetos. I'd probably lose my mind and we'd check into like the courtyard. But that's a great point. Like, Airbnb really has changed, and so many big companies have gotten into this game that it does make it harder for individual people to do this. And I think you guys uniquely have like a mix there. If someone uses you to manage the property, they kind of get that the benefits of scale, because you guys have a maintenance team, a cleaning team, a scheduling team, and you provide a whole list of other services. So I think that's what someone interviewing an agent, property manager, really needs to ask about, is like, what services do you really provide my tenants, and what do I have to do?
Yeah.
So when it comes to the the Southwest Florida market right now for short-term rentals, what does the landscape look like? Because I know the Florida market in general, like right, like we always hear like Florida, Vegas, like Arizona and Dallas, like those markets kind of like operate differently from the rest of the real estate market in the US. What are you guys seeing down there from both a short-term rental perspective as well as from a real estate perspective?
Do you want to say that one, Sean?
Yeah, so the biggest change that we've noticed probably over the last year or two really is the increase in inventory in both properties for sale and properties for rent. I think, the COVID years, certainly a lot of people jumped into the market that might not have been in the market before for a lot of different reasons. And so the inventory significantly increased. So we've seen that really happen a lot. So we've really seen a big kind of differentiation between like owners that are trying to do it on their own versus owners that are allowing professional property management companies um,
For on which
to
side, like
market.
more people want to use a property manager or less?
More people want to use it, yeah, because they
Okay.
realize because of the way that the inventory is so much increased, there's so much more competition that an owner simply would not be able to compete against people like us that have so much experience and so many. Like my position is strictly marketing, and I do making sure our properties we go in once a week to our pricing tool and making sure that we're staying as competitive possible and making micro tweaks and changing all that stuff. So we've seen a huge amount of people that realize that it's a lot more difficult than it's ever been.
Mm. And let's talk about what the sales side, like when it comes to home buying and selling, what should people know if they're thinking about getting, a vacation property down there, moving down to Florida full time? I know in Michigan right now, almost half, if not 75% of the real estate and mortgage transactions we're seeing are people moving here from out of state, or on the sales side, people leaving the state in essence for good. So we're seeing both of those things, and we're seeing less like city to city moving. What are you guys seeing in Florida right now?
Go ahead, Sean.
Yeah, I mean, so we are always been like an inbound market, definitely a destination market. Traditionally, you're up in Michigan, we do get a lot of Midwesterners. I mean, it's kind of funny, like the way I-75 comes straight down. So we've always traditionally had a lot of Midwesterners, but we are definitely starting to see a lot more people from the Northeast, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, Rhode Island, those type of states. And surprisingly enough, we haven't had any, I don't think that we've dealt with directly, but we are seeing more and more people from the West Coast, specifically California, that are coming
Mhm.
to Florida as well.
Interesting. Why do you think that's the case? 'Cause you think Florida, California is already pretty nice. It just doesn't quite get as muggy. Why are they coming to Florida if not just for the difference in politics, maybe?
I mean, that's probably number one, but I think number two is there's no state income tax. So if people are
Mm,
choosing to purchase and move here full time, that's a significant benefit as well.
okay,
Mhm.
that makes a ton of sense. So when we're talking property management in Florida, what are some of the biggest challenges that someone should expect to? Well, I guess like property management in general. What are some of the bigger challenges that an agent thinking about doing this should expect to face? Because we don't want to make it sound easier than it is. Like I think it's a really great lead source that you guys have stumbled upon, but I want to give people an idea of like what hurdles they're going to hit if they decide to get into this game.
Yeah, I mean it is a really good lead source, but it is very challenging as well to meet everyone's expectations. I think it's just being available. It's a full time thing. This is definitely not something you're going to do on the side part time and be successful at. You have to be available to your guests and to your owners, basically 24/7. If someone's staying in a property and the air goes out at 9 o'clock at night, they don't care that it's Friday at 9 o'clock. They want a resolution. And so, we have a storage unit that's full of portable ACs and mini fridges and extra microwaves and you name it. We have all these things so that we can provide really good customer service because, there is a great opportunity to convert business to sales business. But if someone has a poor experience with you on the rental side, you're not going to convert that. So the first thing is you really have to give that 5-star customer service, that experience in order to have the opportunity to convert in the first place.
Well, and almost like you kind of your point about like mini fridges and like a storage locker full of stuff makes me think you almost need to kind of like do your research and come up with like a top 10 list of the typical things that go wrong when a tenant is renting out a short-term property, and in essence like making a contingency plan for each one of those things. And I think that's probably where your solopreneurs who are managing one property, probably their own, it can't really get to that level. And then the bad reviews start to get ahead of them for situations that they would say are probably out of their control. But in all reality, for the guests, the guest was hoping that there was a contingency plan for that. But then you guys face the double-edged sword of like your owners being just as upset if their fridge goes out that's 20 years old. It's your fault that you got a bad review somehow.
Yeah.
So what things are you guys doing to, I guess, to convert some of that business from either tenants or your owners into sales?
Yeah, I mean, so I'd have to give a big shout out to one of my favorite tech partners, StayFi. That's kind of been a game changer for us in the last year. It's really cool. So when people book our properties, it could be a family of brothers and sisters and friends, and it could be 8 people staying there or 5 people. But we only actually get the name, phone number, and email of the guest who booked the stay. With StayFi, it's a Wi-Fi device that goes into the property. It casts out a network called Mike C. Reynolds Guest. There's no password, which is great because you don't have to deal with that's the number one question when people check in. What's the password? In order to get your device online, your phone, your tablet, your laptop, you have to, just like a hotel or airport, you have to put in your name, phone number, email. And so now we're capturing the information of every guest that's at the property. And so now we're remarketing to every guest there for rebooking and for sales opportunities. So we've exponentially been able to grow our database with that tool.
So that's why my 7-year-old is getting calls from realtors, because he's checking his iPad in whenever we go on vacation.
Yep.
Yeah.
That makes sense. So the tool, you said it's called StayFi?
StayFi, yeah.
And is this hardware or software or both?
It's a hardware. It's an access point device that gets plugged into the owner's router, and it casts out its own Wi-Fi.
Oh my gosh. I mean, talk about something that makes a ton of sense. So do you guys purchase one of these for each one of the properties that you manage, or how are you doing that?
We do, yeah. We purchase one for each property. That way, if we end up discontinuing with that property, we take the device out and just repurpose it for another property.
Okay. So then talk to me about the marketing that these email addresses are getting. Like, what type of things should they expect? I mean, is it just, one email a month, is like with an offer to stay again and rebook? What does that look like?
Yeah, there's a couple things. So we do a monthly newsletter. Monthly newsletter is going to highlight new listings. It's going to highlight an older listing, and it's going to talk about things that are going on in the area that are interesting, new restaurant opening, anything like that. And then also a plug for our sales business as well. And we offer small buyer rebate. If you've rented with us and you buy with us, we'll refund part of your last reservation as a hook. Seems to work pretty dang good. And then,
I mean, like, I just have to pause you right there because you mentioned that your email has a hook. And I think I can almost guarantee every agent listening to this call does email marketing. And this is a little bit more general than the specific focus of this podcast. But any email that you're sending out, especially if it's a newsletter or something a little bit more big, needs to have a hook that's enticing enough to convert people. And you guys obviously have that. And I can almost guarantee like that's a huge reason that these things are working. But then the other thing I liked is that newsletter it's not just like, hey, buy a house from Mike. It's not, hey, I just wanted to let you guys know I also can sell you a house. You're taking people who probably had a great time in Naples, Fort Myers. And how could you not have a great time there? It's beautiful all year round, and the food's great. But you're then sending them things that are coming up in the area, like festivals, like the Cars on Fifth, things like that, new restaurants, to entice them to come back. So you have, in essence, a reason to get them excited, and you're, in essence, like the tourism board for the area, but you're a real estate agent. So, I mean, like, you're sending them stuff that's applicable to them, and then giving them little nuggets of how else they could work with you. I think it's so genius. Shaun, I want to pivot to you for a sec, because I've seen some of the marketing you've been putting out recently, and actually, I don't think we've had any realtors on the show from the agency yet. The reels that you've been putting out to market not only short-term rentals but also listings have been
Mhm.
really great. I'd love to hear really quick, Shaun, about your marketing process and kind of like what you do to get more eyeballs on homes.
Yeah, sure. I think I just stepped back like a year or so ago, and I would realize that how many licensed agents there are in the United States,
Too
and then
many?
in our
Was that the
region.
answer?
Yeah, a lot, too many. So what sets any of us apart? And uh, the number one thing is your personality, your authenticity, your personal branding. So I took a course through Sirhand, which is an actual brokerage now. They're based out of New York City, about personal branding, and a lot of it is making sure that people understand who you are, what you bring to the table, your authenticity, and making sure that you're telling a story. I mean, sales is really about storytelling, and it's also about. And I'm a very creative person, so I like to collaborate with people and create these stories. So we work with a local company called Three Palms Media, who helps us create a lot of the stories that we make for our reels. So all the professional stuff that you see is all them. They'll have one or two camera people with us. They do behind the scenes stuff with Mike and I, when we do stuff for American Dream TV, which is a whole other topic. And so it's really just having fun, creating a story, and making sure that people understand who I am, and what I'm trying to accomplish.
Okay. What have been some of your bigger successes with the extra effort that you've been putting into reels and other social media forums?
So mostly my audience that I'm trying to reach the most is other agents, actually, and other agents that are out of region. So other people that might have a customer that's looking to refer them to somebody down here. And a lot of times that first initial point of contact is trying to look somebody up, trying to find them online, trying to see what they're doing on Instagram. So for me, I've had multiple referrals from agents that are out of market, to send them down. And if it's either one of our listings or just want to work with me as a buyer's agent.
I love that. What what advice would you give people? So you guys are in a really interesting spot because you're in Naples, Fort Myers, and there are literally 50 to $100 million houses, but then there's also your normal housing inventory of 0 to any other price range.
Mhm.
You guys are doing a mix of everything. How do you guys position yourselves in the market so that you don't miss out on some of the bigger stuff, but also so that you don't miss out on the bread and butter?
That's a great question. We have a wide variety of properties that we work with. So we have rental properties that are small condo, 90, 85, $90 a night in the off season, and we have a Port Royal home that's renting for 50,000 a month. So we're connected in all those different markets. Um, we sold a condo at the Ritz last month for 7.8 million, and we've sold a lot for 130,000 in Punta Gorda. So we're kind of all over the map there.
Where are you receiving the leads for most of your, I guess, aside from the property management side of things, or is that where all of it's coming? Like, where are you getting some of your other business?
I mean, some of the other businesses through farming efforts in geo areas.
And what are you guys doing to farm different areas? What does farming look like for you?
Yeah, so I mean, aside from just the standard mailings and things like that, just as an example, Cars on Fifth is a
Yeah.
pretty amazing event that happens in Fifth Ave. The agency is the title sponsor for it, so we took advantage of an opportunity like that. We sent a mailer out to our farm. We did a giveaway for 2 all access VIP tickets to the event since we were the title sponsor. It was just a cool opportunity. We picked our winner. We surprised them, picked them up in a limo, took them down to the event, spent the day with them, really got to know them. And 2 months later, they're buying a almost $8 million condo from us.
And so they were just a random person on your list
Yeah.
so you guys got lucky in that respect. Like, you did
Yeah.
the contest, that was all the hard work, but then you randomly picked someone. You could have picked someone who made no money, couldn't afford a cardboard box, but you randomly picked someone that was able to buy an $8 million condo.
Yeah. Well, the postcard went out to our farm area, which is
Okay.
like a high end community. Yeah.
That is on another level. And I mean, that's part of why we all got into real estate, right? Like we all got into this business because you could try something a million times. You only need one or two things to pay off every couple of years in order to get an ROI back on your money. Yeah. What's coming up next for you guys? So like, obviously most people are down this year. You guys are up. That's awesome. You got the property management company. You guys are listing and helping buyers through the agency. What's coming up next? What are some of your bigger initiatives that you have planned for 2024?
Yeah, so we got a couple of big things coming. So we're taking over the rental program of a pretty popular condo hotel in Naples. That's going to be a big deal. There's 156 units there. We'll be starting with just 20 of them that are in the rental program, but trying to build it back up and get everyone back in the rental program that's kind of in dismay. So that'll be big. That'll be new. And then with that, we're also going to be looking to bring cleaning in-house this year for that business. We've reached a size where that makes sense financially and operationally for us to do that.
How many units does someone need to be cleaning before it makes sense to bring cleaning in-house?
I think probably somewhere between 80 and 100. I mean, that's where we felt the need start to come in because you have to be consistent enough to hire someone and pay them and retain them. Because if you don't have enough cleans, you're not going to be able to retain them. But once you get to 100 and above, you really need to have your own cleaners start to make a lot of sense.
Okay, that makes a ton of sense. What advice would you give to someone who is trying to slowly grow a niche when it comes to property management, whether that be short-term rentals, long-term rentals? What would be the first steps on getting started that you would tell them to try?
I don't know, Shaun, what would you say?
I think just being consistent. I think in how you run the business and your communications with people and kind of setting expectations for that. And I think you want to be able to create something that is scalable for sure. So I think it's also really important to know like what your next hire is. And by the time you figure it out, it's already too late. So you really have to try to like project in advance, like what the next position is going to be.
So kind of like building it for scale, even though you aren't there yet.
Yeah, because the only way you're going to make money and the way you're only going to operate is going to be at scale. Because if you're just doing it by yourself, you're never going to be able to get anywhere.
We talk about this a lot. So many agents right now throughout the country are selling, 2 deals or less. I think in my market, there were 600 sales last month, but there were 3,000 realtors. So everyone's looking, not everyone, but like people that aren't in the 250 that make, they're 500,000 or more off real estate, buying and selling. They're always looking for a side hustle. And I've always been one to say, if you are going to pursue a side hustle, it may as well be ancillary to your day hustle, because that way it complements each other versus going to get a part-time job at an insurance agency or, driving for Uber, Lyft, etc. To take a side hustle that's so tied to our industry and that honestly requires a license, like property management. You guys found short-term specific to be a niche. I think that can make a ton of sense. So I kind of tell everyone listening, if you feel the need to get a side hustle and you need to do something else, try to find one that's kind of close to our industry, that keeps you in front of customers, that gives you the opportunity to grow your traditional business. Because at the end of the day, that is really the focus. Guys, thank you so much for joining today. If someone has clients moving down to Naples, or if someone wants advice on property management, how can they get a hold of you?
Yeah, so our rentwithmikez.com is probably the best source for that. That way you can reach out and get in touch with us.
Awesome. Well, Shaun, Mike, thank you guys so much for joining the show today.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thanks, Matt. Really appreciate it.